Thank you, Mr Temporary Speaker. Very interested in that last speech because I well remember as a mother of an 8-week-old baby when we suddenly decided as our family business, our micro business of a mum, a dad, a son and his wife, that we would actually employ our first person. And an idea like this, that this bill would actually introduce, is something that would have been really valuable to us at that time. And that business, Mr Temporary Speaker, is one that actually would has grown over those years to employ at times up to 35 people. So helping micro businesses is a shot in the arm for the engine room of our economy, which is not the great state of New South Wales. It is actually the small mums and dads businesses that we work in as a community. And if you can imagine if you had a small idea that you had turned into a business and then you employed someone, just that one single person, it's always a jump of faith, a leap of faith to ensure that they are going to fulfil the vision that you have for that great business idea. So those micro businesses where putting one person on is such a massive investment will really benefit from this. Of course, the devil will be in the detail, and we need it to be a strategic part of an overall jobs vision, and that's why Labor didn't support the payroll tax legislation that was put forward last time. It was too broad. There was no evidence that it helped enough people. In fact, there was evidence that it was underspent and so therefore was not effective as it should have been. And we really want to be supporting good, visionary, strategic outcomes for jobs. There's no doubt that there's a crisis of jobs in the Hunter. The government talks all the time about job creation, but they don't often talk about their unemployment figures in regional areas like mine. And just talking about the number of jobs that they've ignored is really quite painful for all those people, particularly mature workers, who've actually lost their jobs as a result of transitions in our economy. I was very lucky to hear from Dr Brent Jenkins of the Hunter Valley Research Foundation at the Maitland Business Chamber lunch the other day, and he talked about this need for a bold, innovative and bipartisan approach and talked about the transitions from the mining industry. Now, if we look at the number of, for example, one of his examples was driving jobs. It's about 28% of our economy, and we already have driverless trucks in mines. We have the Google car, which is driverless. We know that we are on the edge of a stunning technological change in our economy, that the jobs that my children will work in have not even been invented yet. Just as when I went to university, the internet was in its infancy, web email was something that professors only had access to, and Facebook hadn't been invented. And now my 13-year-old daughter tells me that Facebook is old hat and it's all about texting and Tumblr. So these jobs, we need to support young people in our community because they are the ones who will become the workforce of our future. We need to also look at what we transition to, and the Minister today, the Treasurer today in her budget talked about the move from a mining economy and into a service economy, and I would refer her to this presentation from Dr Jenkins, where he talks about the problems with trying to replace the service economy with as a replacement for the mining economy, because it doesn't have the same returns on investment that we see in the resources sector. We don't get the same returns out of service jobs that we can get out of our resources, particularly when we come to value adding. If the government was serious, in fact, about service sector, it would also be interesting to see them do something like reinstate the rail in my area, which was actually servicing legal sectors with the new law courts, education sectors with the new university buildings, tourism with the restaurants and the regional museum, and also heritage services around in that region. So if they're going to be serious about investing in service jobs, how about we have some transport out in the regions where we can actually deliver those services? We also need to look at the budget more thoroughly in terms of providing this vision of a strategy for our regions. The Maitland Hospital, the Lower Hunter Hospital, Metford Hospital, whatever you want to call about it, has been on the table for over 5 years now. We've barely seen, in fact we won't see before the end of the 2016 financial year, the initial $20 million commitment finalised, that was made back in 2011. Now, if that had been started at the beginning of this government's first term, we would have had all the construction jobs involved in the process of building it, and then we also would have had the operational jobs that would have come from a new and bigger hospital. It's the same with the Maitland Roundabout. Again, we see this being rebadged as new investment of $19 million. Well, this is a project that, again, slipped under the radar, got far behind in a time frame, and this government is really culpable for the jobs crisis in the Hunter, because they had the funds and the projects ready to go and they haven't actually spent it. It's not just in infrastructure that they're failing our community in jobs, it's also in things like the closure of the East Maitland District Courthouse and the jobs that will go from there, the 24, and have already gone indeed, the failure to actually meet the commitment of the former member for Maitland on the 24/7 opening of Beresfield Police Station, which now I think opens about 1 day a week for training. And also we look at the number of TAFEs teachers sacked and other public sector jobs. And this asset recycling we keep hearing about is all I can see of that is selling off or destroying regional infrastructure to try and create jobs in Sydney. So it's really recycling jobs from the regions into our cities. We need to look at our population policies. Over the last 200 years, the world has seen the rise of industrialised countries who've been able to effectively develop their people and to create efficiencies and productivity by using machinery, and they have flourished. But we're seeing now a move globally to the rise of population economic power. So countries which have huge populations will now be able to harness the technology and be able to provide good jobs for their people, and we need to look at that in terms of a population policy for New South Wales, particularly in our region, and it needs to be much more strategic. We need to innovate those amazing jobs that we want to appear in our economy, the jobs that my daughter and my son and their children will do and your children will do, aren't just going to come organically. This will require major technological innovation and change, and we already experience deep technological inequities in our regional communities with poor and pitiful access to broadband, poor and pitiful access to education, and lack of incentives for new jobs. And it needs to come from a government with real vision about jobs in the future. An example of this would be renewables, which would be a great option in my region, which has a spectacular history of innovation and commercialising innovation to market and manufacturing. But we need a very strong education sector in order to deliver the workers that will work in these industries who will take on these jobs that small and innovative businesses create. And that's why, most importantly, our government should support small businesses with TAFE options for people which are affordable, and other educational outcomes. The white paper that the government produced on TAFE said that they were going to push this onto the employers, that employers would take up the slack. Now, a young person comes to you, they're 15 years old, they're not doing particularly well at school. It's a leap of faith for the employer to actually take them on as an employee. Under the previous government, there were some incentives for the employer to recognise the risk that they were taking, the time they were investing in this young person, the time they were giving them to go to TAFE, but even their own energy and effort. And that risk is something that small business takes on because we give young people a go. But when we increase the fees of TAFE, when we put them up front, when we reduce the incentives to employers, we are giving a kick in the guts to small businesses all around our state. The government expects the business community to do the heavy lifting and creating jobs and to take a leap of faith on people that the government has left behind. And I see this small measure in this bill as some way to trying to redress that balance, but I really want to see, and I want to work with a government that delivers innovation and vision and creates an economy of jobs where all of our people are taken with them. They're not left behind to wither on the vine because the government is too lazy to invest in education.